Annalise, was that the only slide we had, was the membership slide?
Sorry, I was making sure it was recording. We have this one as well.
Oh, yes. I'm really excited that coming up soon, we will have the presentation from Jeanette Berkeley-Patton, one of our very valued community-based participatory researchers from University of Missouri, Kansas City. She'll be speaking on January 18th. I think this is a presentation that you'll be really excited to hear: from the pews to the streets, advancing community engaged research to increase access to health services with underserved populations. Okay, let's flip back over to the other slide, just because we've got a few more people on here. Just want to take this opportunity again to remind you that if you haven't before, we really would like you to become a Frontiers member. Signing up is easy at frontiersctsi.org. Become part of an exciting network of translational researchers, and stay abreast of future training programs and funding opportunities, and being part of our research community. Okay, I think we probably have a quorum on our call, so I think we can go ahead and get going, because we've got quite a few speakers and I think a lot to cover today. I am really thrilled to introduce today my friend and colleague, Dr. Jeff Burns, one of the co-directors of the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, and his illustrious team. I think he's going to be joined by Jaime Perales-Puchalt, Jill Morris, Becky Bothwell, and Matt Taylor, as part of a team talking about the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Burns.
All right. Great. Thanks, Ed. And thanks for the opportunity to share what we're doing with the ADRC. What is the ADRC and what's the purpose, and how can people benefit? So I am sharing my screen, right? Let me know if I'm not. And yeah, so we're going to kind of tell our story and try to make it put it on sort of a practical level in terms of what we're doing and why, and then again, how can people who are interested in doing research in Alzheimer's or aging, even real broad sort of mission, but how can you potentially leverage what we've got to advance your research? And you're going to hear from, as Ed said, Dr. Perales, Dr. Morris, Becky Bothwell, and Matt Taylor. And so Jaime Perales is going to talk about recruitment. Jill Morris is going to talk about our biomarker program and our pilot project program, which we call our developmental projects program. So grants that we issue every year. Becky's going to talk about our clinical research operations, which is a big team that can support getting research done. So the coordination and operationalization of how do you turn a protocol into reality. Has an amazing team that does that. And then Matt Taylor, who's coming from the School of Health Professions and is a longtime collaborator with us, is going to kind of tell his story about studies he's done and how he's leveraged what we're doing to kind of hopefully bring it to life and give some concrete examples. But first, I'm going to talk just a little bit about what is the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. So we are funded by the National Institute of Aging as part of this group of 33 nationally designated ADRCs in the country. And you have to win a big grant to get into this club. And we broke in 2011 after 7 years of hard work and putting together an application. And to get into the club, we had to knock somebody out. It's really competitive and hard to get in. And the year we got in, Duke and Michigan lost theirs. There were 27 at the time, and we had to knock somebody out. And we actually got in. They got knocked out. Big deal for us to get in. It's a prestigious thing. It means we have a whole lot going on, sort of moving science forward on a national level. We have education programs and even our clinical aspects really up and running. And so that's what it takes to really get to get into this club. And they've grown it from 27 to 33 in the last decade. So, some new sites came in, and they were Stanford, Yale, and Duke and Michigan both getting back in. And so it gives you a sense of the kind of competition, we're up against. We have to get renewed every 5 years and show that we're making progress and really growing and moving the science forward. And we are in our third renewal. So we're showing, we can do this. We're part of this club and we're doing it really at the highest levels. And it's been a lot of fun, but that gives you a sense of what's the mission of the ADRC. It's really to advance science, and it's an infrastructure to the idea is kind of make it easier for folks, for researchers and scientists to do their work. That's the goal. Can we set things up to make it easier for people to do cutting edge science at the highest level? And that's what we do, is work hard to try to do that and help people do that. So our theme, all those centers work together in various ways. We have a lot of sort of uniform stuff that we do. We see patients, research participants. We have a cohort of about 500 individuals that we see every year now. We contribute that data to a national database. We collaborate in a lot of ways around that, but we also compete a little bit. And our theme that we bring to the center network is metabolism. This is Russ Swerdlow and others. Swerdlow, who is my partner and directing the center, is the kind of a world leader, international leader in metabolism research. And his ideas really fuel a lot of what's going on in the center. And it was really unique and innovative, and has become something that's a big focus now. It used to kind of be not in the mainstream, kind of in the backwaters. And now it's becoming a mainstream idea, and a lot of folks see us as the metabolism center, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of a theme, and a lot of the resources we have are built around that. The world of Alzheimer's is changing fast. We've got some new drugs, which are really changing a lot in terms of how we care for patients and think about patients, and biomarkers and things are moving forward. It's been a time of a lot of change since we started back in 2011, and actually 2004, honestly, is when I got here. Russ got here in 2007. And it's a dramatic change from where we were then to where we are now. And the figure on the right shows our funding from the National Institute of Aging and how that's grown. It was $100,000 in 2004, and we're at about 22 million in funding from the National Institute of Aging. And we can't and shouldn't take credit for all that, but I can say a good majority of it wouldn't be here if the ADRC weren't here. And so we're really proud of that, and that's what we want to drive, is increase funding from the National Institute of Aging or the NINDS or any really, but most of our funding is directly coming from the National Institute of Aging. So we've benefited from a big increase in funding nationally, focused on Alzheimer's, but we've probably more benefited because we're really doing stuff that's leading the way, especially like in metabolism and lifestyle research. And we're this phrase of when they say that's what they say, for a lot of things, we're the they, and that's what they say. Our scientists are the they, and that's what they say. When it comes to metabolism and mitochondria and even lifestyle, exercise and diet, we are the they, and that's what they say, honestly. So we're leading the way in those areas. So a few more stats. So just that we're really proud of, and that is NIA funding, which was, minimal 20 years ago, is now 25% of the campus's funding. Coming from the NIA, and it's $22 million. So we're pretty proud of that. It's not the only metric, but it is a really good metric to say we're doing innovative stuff at the highest level and winning big grants and moving stuff forward. So how are we doing it, and how are we designed to try to help investigators and scientists? We have resources that we've built up. I mentioned our cohort, and that's a group of 500 people that we see every year. We collect a lot of data. We collect biospecimens. We collect images. We collect genetic information. We have a much larger participant registry. You can recruit participants. You can work with us to recruit participants, older adults and people with and without Alzheimer's and mild cognitive impairment, through our registry or through our cohort. Our registry is much bigger, thousands of people. Our cohort is about 500 active people. We have biospecimens that we're storing that are paired with a lot of longitudinal clinical and cognitive data. We have genetics and biomarkers, as we'll talk about. We have brain imaging. existing brain imaging. We also can help you, do new imaging, neurovascular core, and then, as you'll hear from Becky Bothwell, clinical trial support, and clinical research. Doesn't have to be a trial like an industry trial, but clinical research. If you have a project that you're doing, big or small, we could potentially help you. And then our metabolic stuff is the resources and the equipment and stuff that we have is available for use. And then our developmental projects program. That's our pilot funding that we dole out every year. So quick snapshot into the variety of things that we've built up over the last, almost 15 years now, and really to drive that research that we're doing. We love to collaborate and that's why we exist. Here's some photos of people we're collaborating with, and there's a lot more than this, but just to put some faces, on it, that it's, real. We're working with people. Our goal is to help them get R01s, R21s, whatever, NIH funding, whatever. One of them is Lauren Tomey here. I'm going to single her out because one thing we've done in the last couple of years really is build what we're calling our brain health and Down syndrome program that Lauren leads. And it's a brand new program that really has a bright future and is off to an amazing start, where we have this nucleus of work that we're doing built around our clinical core. This group of, Becky Bothwell's team and the clinical core to bring to life this big program where we have a cohort, and we're participating in national multi-site studies, all to drive, interest on campus and an increase in research on campus around brain health and Down syndrome. Everyone with Down syndrome develops Alzheimer's pathology in the brain, and we think we can potentially prevent it and better treat it when it develops, but potentially prevent it in the future. And so, and one last thing, and then I'll turn it over to Jaime. We've also developed over the years what we now call our brain health training program. This is a training program with postdocs, pre-doc funding, summer program for medical students, and clinical programming, meaning a fellowship for physicians, and we think the first in the country fellowship for nurse practitioners for dementia care. And so we've developed this program, and we're working to really achieve long-term stable funding so that it continues to grow and create new careers focused on dementia and Alzheimer's. And here's a current sort of roster of people that we've, in our very first year as the brain health training program, that we're supporting to advance their careers. So active and off to a great start. And so I'll stop there. And so hopefully that gives you an overview of the, why we exist and how we do it. And now we'll get into some more specifics, and we'll start with Jaime, who's going to talk about our recruitment. So
thank you, Jess.
All right.
Perfect. Yeah, so we're going to talk about recruitment. I'm going to start with talking about the problem, then the option recruitment core, and then the numbers of how we're doing. So I want to start with research recruitment is a big barrier to success in most types of healthcare research. And what I'm showing here is from a recent review from 2015 that basically shows that a lot of clinical trials are not meeting their recruitment goals, and a huge percentage of terminations are due to people not being able to recruit their samples. And this raises a huge ethical issue in which there's a lot of participants participating in trials that cannot answer their research question. So they're putting them on their necessary risks without the benefit of gaining knowledge from the research. Next one, please. This is also true for Alzheimer's research. It's been the problems with recruitment have been described as the second most major barrier to achieve the first National Alzheimer's Project goal, which is preventing and effectively treating Alzheimer's and related dementias by 2025. This issue has been going on since the mid-90s. It's common to many studies, and underneath you can see some of the barriers that research groups experience with recruitment. Next one. And this is particularly a problem for minoritized populations who are underrepresented in research in many cases. So The bar on the left is showing the share of non-Latino Black individuals and Latinos in the US population 65 and older. But then you can see how they're underrepresented in non-drug prevention clinical trials. That's the next one, the one in orange. The one in gray, 10%, is National Institute on Aging funded randomized controlled trials on dementia drugs, and 2.3% of the share of industry drug clinical trials. So huge underrepresentation of non-Latino Black and Latino individuals, among others. Next one, please. If we are excluding groups because we're technically just being passive, like whoever comes first will be part of the study, instead of many of us going to the potential research participants to give everyone a fair chance, what we're doing is we are threatening external validity, and therefore results might not be generalizable to all populations. If we're doing this, we're potentially advancing the science for those individuals who are able to participate, but maybe not advancing for those who cannot, and therefore potentially widening the health gap that already exists, where Latinos and African Americans have a higher risk of dementia. Next one. So this is the structure of the Outreach Recruitment and Engagement Core, which is led by Dr. Eric Vidoni, and then we have Dr. Lewandowski as well, directing the engagement piece, Michelle Needens, the service and support piece, and myself as the inclusive science or recruitment science. The engagement sector focuses on communications and community education. So go into the community, educating the community with different types of presentations that we're creating or participating in health fairs. We have a registry where we, with several thousands of people in English and Spanish, where we share information about Alzheimer's, about how to reduce the risk of dementia, or resources. We obviously talk to them about the different studies that we have. Then we have the research participation group that's focused on basically pre-screening the individuals that we engage, and referring the ones that are eligible to potential studies where they might be eligible. Then we have the service and support team that's focused on providing support to family members of people with dementia and the people with dementia themselves. These are usually social workers or nurses. And then the recruitment science team focused on developing scholarship on how to best recruit and how to be more inclusive in science, and also providing consultation to researchers. And we're collaborating with Juntos in the Department of Population Health. We have a collaborative called Juntos for Brain Health as well, especially focused on the Latino population. Next one. This is kind of the same thing, but on the left is how we are engaging people through many of these strategies that I mentioned. So I'm including the engagement team and the support team in engagement. Then whoever is engaged will be passed on to this registered volunteer that will be pre-screening and sending to the research studies. It's just a different way to see it. Next one. Jeff Burns told me to reduce some slides, so I just left one of the coolest ones, is that we're providing opportunities for inclusive participation. If we don't have researchers interested in diversity, we're not going to get the diversity. So we have a growing cadre of investigators focused on diversity and health disparities, including myself, especially with Latino community, Dr. Ashley Shaw with the African American community, Dr. Fikr and Dr. Key focused on diverse populations, Dr. Stomy and Helsel on Down syndrome, Drs. Burns and Vidoni in rural and other minoritized groups. And I'm showing here many of the grants that we have. Next one. So there's a lot of approaches that we've taken. We've especially put a strong effort in the last few years, especially after COVID, and you can see how the numbers of collaborative studies that have been enrolling, the enrollments into collaborative studies have gone up ever since 2020. 2020 obviously was the start of COVID, so you can see a little, it's gone down a little, but after that it's been really going up because of all the effort that we've put into it. And we're not just recruiting in Kansas City, as you can see on the right. We're recruiting in many different counties, and we're we're expanding, especially to rural Kansas and other regions as well. Next one. With regards to diversity, you can see pre-2020 and 2020 and late and all the way to present how we've increased the representation of people in our enrollments, from rural backgrounds, Latino backgrounds, and non-white, non-Latino backgrounds as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jaime. And yeah, I did make Jaime cut a few. He's got more to brag about, but that was great, Jaime. And I mean, the point is recruitment is hard, and it's can kill a study. And so take it very seriously, budget well for it, and if you need us, we can help. If it makes sense, we can help. So perfect. And now, so moving to Dr. Morris. Jill, you ready?
I'm ready. All right.
Sure.
So I'm going to go through this pretty fast, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. I just wanted to touch base on some of the biomarker support that we can provide for people who are interested in our type of research, Alzheimer's, related dementias, aging. One of the things that we do a lot is consultation, and this doesn't cost anything. We are available to talk through considerations that you might have for studies regarding things like blood draw volume, regarding your outcomes, anticoagulants that you need to think about, which might differ between what fluid biomarkers you're interested in looking at, or if you're interested in mitochondrial outcomes. We've done a lot of optimization, and we are happy to help. We have a lot to say about processing. There's new best practices in the field right now for how you need to actually process and store your blood, especially regarding plasma. There's additional considerations for other biomarkers such as BDNF that we have worked out as well. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're actually doing the design of your study. I would also include this. I'm sorry, I think somebody else has their mic on. I would also include storage. We have certain things to consider regarding tube types like polypropylene versus polystyrene. Amyloidogenic proteins can stick to certain plastics. So things like this that we're available to kind of guide people on are really important. Aliquots, freeze thaws. So please reach out to us if you're interested and you want any advice on how to design your study. Also consent forms. A lot of people are interested in genetics, specifically APOE. So we need to think about including Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, or GINA, language in that when you're wanting to do those sorts of analyses, and then you coming to want to do APOE genotyping, we can only do that if there's GINA language in the consent form. And then also sample storage and future use. So just for design, reach out to us if you need anything. We also do fluid biomarker assays themselves, which is on the last slide. We have a Simoa platform and a LumaPulse platform. So the Simoa has basically this single molecule array technology that is 1,000 times more sensitive than an ELISA for many proteins. So we use that for ATN. You can think of it like an iceberg. So if you're using a traditional ELISA, you can detect the things at the top, but really to get at the sensitive changes and the things that might be changing early in disease, we really need a more sensitive platform. We have a variety of assays we can do. The ACN assays, including p-tau217, which is really the newest AD biomarker that has everyone so excited. It provides really beautiful data. Neurofilament light, which is applicable across the range of neurodegenerative diseases, including ALS, MS, head injury, Huntington's. That's a really great biomarker across diseases. There's additional inflammatory biomarkers, interleukins, interferons. Those are really made to order. So if you are interested in any of those, there is some lead time. We would need to reach out to the company and let them know that we're interested, and then they would have to build based on the number of assays that are requested. We also have a LumaPulse machine, and that actually has FDA approval for CSF analysis of amyloid, which is really exciting. It's a real gold standard that we have just acquired this summer. The thing about the LumaPulse is that although it doesn't have the breadth that the Quanterix Simoa has, it allows for stat measures. So it might be better at analyzing studies that need real-time data. You can analyze just one sample at a time in this machine, whereas you have to really have a batch for the Simoa. You can go to the next slide, Jeff. We also are fortunate to have cutting-edge technology and expertise for mitochondrial biomarkers. We offer, again, consultation and protocol design help, but also measures of mitochondrial function, live cell imaging, respiration in cells or tissues across species. mitochondrial DNA copy number, lots of considerations for study design. So we're really, really a great center if you're interested in bioenergetics. And then go to the next slide. And as my last slide, I just really wanted to plug our developmental project program. The goal of this program is to provide seed support for people to generate data for successful external applications focused on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. We fund basic translational, clinical, and care projects, so really across the continuum. We're especially excited about applications from early career investigators. If you're a postdoc, early stage, or new investigator to Alzheimer's disease, and people who haven't yet received ADRC support, we're really interested in just growing the breadth of investigators focused on Alzheimer's disease. And we will be releasing our RFA for our pilot program this year, tomorrow. So if you're interested, please email me directly and I'll get it to you, and you should see it circulating around KUMC. The letter of intent deadline is January 15th. So this year we're just going to do a short 2-page LOI to begin with. That's pretty low hanging fruit. Basically, you just need some aims and information about yourself, and that will be enough for the LOI. So please consider submitting one. And that's all I have.
All right, great. Thanks, Jill. Yeah, so consider applying for pilot funding. And then I want to put a little tiny perspective on the biomarkers that Jill was just talking about. And, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, we would make our diagnoses, our clinical diagnoses of Alzheimer's, and based on, cognitive data and clinical interaction, and unsupported by biomarkers like amyloid and tau, which are part of the disease, part of the definition of the disease. And we're now in an era where we can do this in blood with blood measures, and Jill's, our leader in that area. And so basically every study from here on out, I would imagine, will require some sort of biomarker support for these diagnoses. So not only at characterization stage, but then this is a valuable tool for measuring, how people change over time, and our interventions having an impact on these measures. And so the whole world around biomarkers and around how we can characterize people has changed, because now simple blood tests can give us that kind of information. And if you're doing a study in this area, get blood, talk to Jill and team about how to draw the blood, and then you can get these measures through the biomarker core. If you're thinking ahead, planning for it, and have the budget. And these are much more accessible than, say, 5 to 10 years ago, where only the biggest centers who had huge efforts to get biomarkers in spinal fluid, or the fancy imaging, amyloid PET and tau, and the money to do that could do. Now anyone can do it. So it's a whole new era. So exciting stuff. Okay. So now moving on to Becky Bothwell, who is director of our clinical research operations, and is going to talk a little bit about that. Becky?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm just going to give a really quick high-level overview of clinical research operations here at the KU ADRC. So at any given time here, I'd say we typically have around 50 or so studies. About half of our clinical research studies are what I would call internal, where we have our PI and study coordinator, most of the study team running the study, but we do a lot of support for outside investigators too. So about half of them are ADRC supported studies, and we're providing some type of service to help that PI get their study completed. And we'll talk a little bit more about service here in a minute. As far as the types of studies we do, I think we kind of run the gamut. We do investigator-initiated, industry-sponsored. We do observational studies, interventional studies. Dr. Burns talked a lot about our expertise in exercise and diet. So we have staff who have a lot of experience in those areas, as well as medication trials and education as an intervention. We do prevention, we do treatment. And then as far as the populations we work with, as you are familiar with, our healthy older individuals and brain aging and Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. We do some DLB and FTD studies recently. And we have quite a few studies actually now under our Down syndrome program that Dr. Burns mentioned. So we have opened up that population of studies recently. Next slide. As far as what we're here to do, we're here to provide the infrastructure to investigators to help them operate and complete their studies. And so that infrastructure might include anything from the very beginning, when an investigator is thinking about a study and writing a protocol. We can help with that. We have done quite a few studies in this area, and if an investigator has an idea and is just not quite sure about some of the steps that would be done, what measures, how that would flow and all of that, we can kind of help with that protocol development and putting it into place. We also have a lot of experience with getting a study up and going. And as you all know, that's not an easy task here at KU. There are a lot of steps we need to get through. And so we kind of have sort of put together a streamlined guidance for investigators and our staff complete a lot of those steps and completing all the steps to get a study going. It might include the regulatory pieces, regulatory guidance. So we have that infrastructure too. We have clinical research coordinators on staff that do help serve our investigators, but we are able to contract with other departments if a PI needs a coordinator and has a research project that they would like to conduct with our Alzheimer's Disease Center. We have psychometry testing, experiencing cognitive tests. We have research clinicians who can do assessments and can offer that sort of support to investigators. And then we also have our own clinical research nurse now that we used to not have until about last year. Next slide. And as far as the numbers of staff, we've grown a lot over the years. We are now up to having about 14 coordinators, 10 research assistants. We've expanded and added positions. We have someone who's dedicated to the community exercise facilities with our exercise studies, having a community exercise program coordinator help with those facilities we partner with. We have 5 psychometrists now. We have the regulatory coordinator, a clinical research nurse. We have a research resource manager for all the investigators who are wanting to utilize our services, so they can reach out to one contact person and she will help do the intake and kind of learn what an investigator is looking for and help steer them into the right resources. And then to help manage everything, we have a supervisor, a manager, and myself, the director of the CRO. A couple more slides. I did want to mention one of the studies in particular and highlight our clinical cohort study is our flagship study, and this is funded by our P30 grant. So not only does this study provide a lot of data to the National Coordinating Center that we send the data to, but it can serve as a really big resource for local investigators here. We currently follow around 500 individuals in that study, but we always increase our goals here. If anyone has worked with Dr. Burns, you know, you're always going to increase everything. So we're going to now shoot for 600 people in the cohort study. We follow people who have normal cognition, mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease, or dementia due to Alzheimer's disease annually for as long as they're willing to come. And when they come on these annual visits, we're collecting clinical assessments, so getting a clinical dementia rating, other physical assessments. We do cognitive assessments yearly and collect blood biomarkers. And then in addition to all of those kind of standard measures, we are also collecting cerebrospinal fluid. We're getting some PET and MRI images, and lots of other kind of sub-studies, a big one of which we also ask all of our participants to possibly donate their brain upon death after being in the study for so long, and being able to let us get that autopsy on their brain to correlate with all of the data that we've collected on them over the years. So again, as I said, investigators, the study itself is producing a lot of data going to the National Coordinating Center. Researchers can tap into it, but then locally, this cohort is here to serve investigators, whether that's the participants themselves. Investigators can request to actually recruit our cohort participants who already have a lot of good data on them and layer on your research question. Or maybe an investigator has an idea and their research question could be answered by asking for some of the data that we've already collected or some of the specimens we've already collected from this cohort. So a very large, huge, important study that I think is a huge help to not just us, but the community. And I think I might, oh, maybe that's it. Okay.
Yeah, so great. Yep. So so the expertise and the data and the biospecimens, all available to advance science. So yeah, thank you. Perfect, Becky. All right, and then we'll move on to Dr. Taylor, School of Health Professions, longtime collaborator. He's going to tell us about his work and how he's leveraged the ADRC to move it forward.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I'm here as the example of someone who's not part of the ADRC to show sort of how you can leverage it from that angle. So I've been really fortunate to collaborate with the ADRC since 2013, and I started collaborating with them as a doctoral student. This was sort of driven by having mentors that push towards collaborating and doing interdisciplinary science. So that was, great to have that push. But I think I kind of wonder if I wouldn't have had that, if I would have naturally gravitated towards collaborating with the ADRC anyway, because I think the leadership should be commended on how collaborative they are, and how well they foster sort of the support for people like myself. So my research focuses on nutrition and brain energy metabolism, which really fits well within the overall metabolism theme at the ADRC. And I would say that without the support of the resources that they have, many of the projects that have been, I think, are asking important questions and also doing fun projects wouldn't be possible. So on the next slide, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of history. So I think it was probably, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years ago that my mentor, Dr. Deb Sullivan, reached out to Jeff and said, hey, I think diet's probably a really important piece in Alzheimer's progression and development. And so I think they came to an agreement to start measuring diet in a clinical trial that Jeff was leading called the APEX trial. It was looking at exercise and brain amyloid accumulation in people that were at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. And when I came on as a doctoral student, I had this wealth of data that was available to me to ask some questions. And one of the questions that I was interested in from this metabolism standpoint was, how does high glycemic diet, how does consumption of sugar and high consumption of refined carbohydrates influence risk of Alzheimer's disease? And collecting this data wound up providing some interesting results, where you see this figure here where if people eat a high glycemic diet, that within the brain, it seems to influence how much brain amyloid these individuals have, and it also influences how much they have that they continue to accumulate longitudinally. So that served as a really nice background for preliminary data to move forward with some other projects. So I'm going to go through a few projects that I have ongoing right now that are being supported by the ADRC, and what the ADRC is doing to support those projects. And they're all leveraging these resources that have already been highlighted in the previous talks. So this preliminary data from this specific study went on to fuel a K01 submission that was funded by the NIA. And so what we were interested in looking at was just exploring deeper how this high glycemic diet might influence Alzheimer's risk. And so the way the ADRC is supporting me here is Dr. Burns is my primary mentor on this study. He's provided an incredible platform for learning about doing Alzheimer's disease clinical trials, learning about clinical manifestations, and then connecting me with other mentors in the space that provide, that fill other gaps in learning that I need, including neuroimaging mentors and cognition-based mentors as well. The real kind of meat and potatoes of the study, though, is we leveraged the clinical cohort to implement dietary intake measurement in a longitudinal fashion, which is going to allow us to utilize what's already being collected in this sort of brain aging project and sort of understand how dietary intake is going to ultimately relate to some of those measures as people, progress in age and potentially develop Alzheimer's disease. And then from a clinical trial standpoint, we've been able to incorporate this dietary measurement in some other ongoing clinical trials that the ADRC supports, that allows us to further sort of expand the kind of biomarkers that we look at, but also just sort of like get more data in order to compile this and understand the sort of investigate this question that we have. Move on to the next slide. So that's an example of a longitudinal study. Here's an example of a clinical trial. I recently got a grant from the Alzheimer's Association to look at creatine monohydrate supplementation in patients with Alzheimer's disease. Some preclinical mouse models suggest that it could be beneficial for brain energy metabolism if you use an AD mouse model. And nobody's done this in humans, so we were moving forward with this because it really fits the research interests that I have. So we're giving patients 20 grams of creatine monohydrate per day for 8 weeks, and we're testing the outcomes on brain energy metabolism in these Alzheimer's patients. So the ADRC has been incredible support from a recruitment standpoint. So Jaime talked about this. There's a database of research-ready participants that the ADRC houses that has well-characterized individuals that are ready to participate in studies and ensure that when you say you're enrolling patients with Alzheimer's disease, that we're actually enrolling patients with Alzheimer's disease. So this has been crucial. The biomarker core that Jill talked about is helping me measure the mitochondrial function outcomes that we're interested in, and we're measuring these in blood cells. And you see on this graph to the right, when patients enroll in this study, they have really low mitochondrial function, and it appears that our intervention is benefiting mitochondrial function. So this has been exciting. And I also leverage the neuroimaging core, which I align with, I use in a lot of my studies. And they help me to measure some of these brain energy metabolism biomarkers as well, so that we can have a nice array of peripheral and brain impacts from studies. Next slide. This next example is how we implemented a multi-site trial or a multi-site study in the clinical cohort. So Duke University has a U01 project called the Alzheimer's Gut Microbiome Project, which the goal is to understand how the microbiome influences Alzheimer's development and progression. We also do a lot of work with metabolomics in this study as well. And we were able to bring this to the clinical cohort staff and seamlessly implement microbiome sample collection, plasma collection, and questionnaire data as well within the clinical cohort, so that we can longitudinally provide data to this project. And I have to I'm very proud of the group that we've been working with, because we're one of the major contributors to this project, and that's been really exciting to see. So we can move on to the next slide. And then the final example that I have here is sort of like the culmination of a lot of work. I'm really excited that we submitted an R61, R33 that was scored really well and is likely to be funded. And where this is exciting to me is the collaboration with the ADRC has been great. This is allowing me to kind of place my thumbprint on some of the resources that are available at the ADRC as well. So this project is, the goal of this project is to develop new MRI biomarkers that measure brain energy metabolism, and we think they'll be very important for Alzheimer's disease. And then it also is going to, in the second phase, test a clinical trial, the ketogenic diet, to determine whether or not that influences these new markers that we have. So the support here is that the neuroimaging core is supporting me and measures that we already typically do, but they're allowing me to help drive some of the new measures that we are interested in and could be very beneficial to clinical trials going forward with the Alzheimer's Disease Center. And the recruitment core is really instrumental in ensuring that we get the appropriate participants in this study. So I would highly encourage, if you have any interest in Alzheimer's disease, to reach out to the leadership at the ADRC and discuss your interest, because they do foster, they have a really great environment for you to sort of brainstorm and turn your projects into real projects. So.
All right. Excellent, Matt. That was very cool. and impressive, and you've come a long way. Matt is somebody who sinks his teeth into something and sticks with it and pushes it, to a new place, and leverages what we've got. It's not as easy as sort of submitting. I'm going to talk about, how do you get to, how do you request a resource or something, and we have a process for that. You got to put a little thing in, but it's really more about talking, learning how, things work, and leveraging it to your advantage to advance, the science. And that's something that Matt has done for 10 plus years. And it takes, it's a very much a bi-directional, you got to learn how things work and how to insert things into the workflow and, or, leverage what we've got, which starts with figuring out what do we have and how can you use it. And so submit a resource request, and that'll sort of trigger a, probably a series of questions and interactions to get to where, we can figure out how to help you. So you can go to our website, and find in there, I think it's under investigators or research, and submit a resource request that way for any of these things, or use that QR code there. But that's why we're here. That's why we exist, is to make this stuff, bring this stuff to life and move science forward. And I'm going to end on this, that, we've come a long way in our almost 20 years, really, I guess 12 as an ADRC, and 20 years of sort of effort. And we now, as publicly launched in the Ever Onward campaign. If you haven't heard about that, you will over the next year or two or three. This is KU's new fundraising effort to raise $2.5 billion over in the coming years, to really drive things. And our brain health initiative is one of the top three major priorities for that campaign, which we're really, really excited about. We think it's a whole new era for brain health, and we need to, capitalize on what we've done to date and really grow it for the future to really bring this new era of brain health to Kansas City and to the state of Kansas in the way, it should be done, which is a more integrated way and a more comprehensive way, and a way that where we're networked across the state with primary care providers and others, to achieve optimal brain health for more than just Alzheimer's, but for any, late life dementia and other diseases of brain health. So exciting time for us. Yep, hope you learned what is the ADRC and how to access us and take advantage. So I'll stop there and turn it back over to you, Ed.
Jeff, that was absolutely incredible. What you've done over the last 12 years, tenfold increase in NIA funding, but more than that, just the research that you're doing there. Matt's presentation of what he's done over the past few years is awe-inspiring. One of the key issues with Frontiers is advancing team science, and I can't think of a more beautiful exemplar of leveraging team science to advance research than what you've actually demonstrated here. Feel free to unmute or stick a question in the chat. We've got about 10 minutes for some Q&A. Jeff or Matt, either one. One of the things I'm surprised I never heard about was something called J-Crew. Could you comment a little bit on what you do to try to advance research and brainstorming? So let's say I've got an aging or Alzheimer's disease idea, but it's not fully developed, and I really want to start thinking about some ideas or trying to put a team together. What do I do?
Well, okay, I'll give the big picture on it, and then maybe Matt, you can comment on it. But J-Crew is something that Eric Vidoni started and Jaime Perales now runs. And we meet monthly or every other week or so. And it is a forum for putting your ideas out there so that people can, ask you questions and kind of throw darts at it and help you get to a clearer place in terms of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do. And it's a really nice forum for that, for that exchange of ideas. And so we encourage everyone who's got an early Ames page or a grant, or even an abstract or a paper if you want, but, primarily Ames pages to to get into, present it at that forum and look for that kind of give and take feedback, to get to the next draft. So Matt, you want to comment on it?
I can also comment that it's a great place to get feedback and also to find collaborations with other researchers. We have researchers from the research assistant level to the senior faculty level, and there's a lot of great feedback. There's something that I really like is that it's pretty informal. So, especially for those who are a little scared of, well, am I gonna be better with criticism? No, it's all really friendly, and we're there to help.
Yeah, but the point is to actually get that kind of constructive criticism in a informal, nice, hopefully way, so that you don't get as much when you get your reviews. So it's been a really incredible and highly valuable thing. So, and I know Matt, you've used it.
Yeah, I think my final just thought on that is that there's the direct feedback that you get on your projects, but I think just sitting in and listening to the conversation is a really great way to indirectly learn about Alzheimer's. So there's just so many really smart comments that are made that help influence what you may do in future projects. So even if you don't bring something forward, just sitting in and listening to what people have to say you can really learn a lot.
Whether it's the very basic science all the way to community-based research, we've had people presenting on all of these, so everyone's welcome.
Yeah, Jaime, it's really impressive what you've done with that. I think you've got over 100 people who are on your regular email list. I don't think everybody logs in every time, but just being on the email list, you get to see what's coming up and be aware of some of the activities. I've gotten a chance to participate, and I figured some of Matt's success might be related to that type of feedback that and the culture you've actually created for that type of sharing. Can you talk a little bit about any opportunities for collaboration with any of our other centers or programs around the university? So I understand the ADRC is focused on metabolism. Strikes me that isn't there a metabolism COBRI? Is there a lot of interaction with that? Should we be doing anything more in the area of cancer and aging, or is there any overlaps there that we haven't taken full advantage of?
I don't know if I'm the right. I see Jill on. Jill, do you want to comment on that, or?
I can talk a little bit about it. I think that is a really, really great point, and that's something that we're actively working on, developing additional collaborations in those areas. We do have some collaborations with John Tifo. He's involved in the metabolism COBRI, bringing individuals into Alzheimer's disease who might be, obesity researchers or diabetes and things like that. So those are all risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And then we actually did have a collaboration a couple of years ago where we got a supplement with Andy Godwin's group to use we were interested in doing things with extracellular vesicles, and they have expertise in their COBRI for that. So there have been instances where, if I see a researcher who's interested in something that I know that somebody else on campus has expertise for, then we can direct them that way. And we can also collaborate with them where maybe that's not a huge focus of our metabolism core, but maybe they have that expertise. So we have collaborated with the Cancer Center on those specific projects, and also kind of directed people that way as well. But that's definitely something that helps everyone.
It is happening naturally. I know Russ and Heather Wilkins are collaborating more and more with Cancer Center. So we're always looking for that, and trying to drive those kinds of collaborations. So, and there's lots happening.
Sounds great. And I know some cancer centers have really focused on cancer and aging. And if there's need to bring some folks in for some joint meetings, that could be a great opportunity. Becky, could you comment a little bit more on the ADRC registry and its relationship to registries at other ADRC institutions? Are our 500 or 600 patients here part of a larger bank, or is that unique just to KU?
Yeah, and Dr. Burns, you might want to take it from me, but that our 500 to 600 participants are our own local that go into the National Coordinating Center, where all the 33 centers are sending their data. And I don't think all the centers have varying enrollment goals. So I don't know what the total number is that is going into NAC. But yes, it's much broader and bigger.
Yep. So all 33 do submit the same uniform data set to NAC, NACC, National Alzheimer's Coordinating Center. So that data is available for download on the 30,000 plus participants from all the centers. But then locally we have our 500, and we do we have the uniform data set, but we build some things around that are our own to try to stimulate work in metabolism and other things. So lifestyle, etc.
Yeah, I think that may be what I was kind of probing at is whether are there like 30,000 people there? Is there a uniform data set that if somebody was looking for a larger population that might be approachable? And Becky, would they come to you to ask questions about that then, or
about the larger data set, the national data set?
Yeah.
I'm actually, I don't think that would be me, and I'm trying to think who that would be. Dr. Burns,
it's Jaime.
Yeah.
He stuck the link in there.
Yeah, it could be Jaime there. Jaime.
There you go.
But no, it'd probably be sort of, you could chat with us about ideas, but then it's going to NAC to get the data.
Yeah, you can request the data through NAC directly, but I suggest talking to us because we know the data, because that's what we collect every day.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess if I was interested in something like that, I'd probably run it by the J Crew team first anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was really impressed with your exponential increase in funding and some of your training grants. Can you talk a little bit? Are there some opportunities for diversity supplements? Is there anything you're specifically doing to reach out to advance equity among research in Alzheimer's disease?
I'll say, yeah, there's diversity supplements available. We've received a few of those, and we're always working hard on that front and make this a big effort. And Jaime, maybe you comment on efforts around diversity, diverse research workforce.
There's definitely diversity supplements that you can get through a P30, through a NAR1, etc. So that's a great way to start. We've had 3 of our researchers, including myself, that's the way we started. And then there's other just parent grants like K awards that we've been getting, many of us, and there's specific K awards also to increase diversity. So there's always a lot of different options. And then the grants that Jill also mentioned, in addition to others, are other ways to help increase that diversity, because we also make sure that the researchers are focusing on that, whatever pilot grants they get.
Well, thank you so much. We've hit the top of the hour. If you didn't know, you really have to get into the chat or raise your hand or just speak up, because I'll just keep asking questions the whole time. This was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate what you've done here, and I just can't think of a better way to highlight some of the opportunities available with the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center and some of the overlap with some of our mission frontiers. So thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Looking forward to having everybody at our next Research and Discovery Grand Rounds. See you later.